He's a terrible, awful, complete, like, unapologetically irredeemable, horrible person. I live, I die, I love her so much. Well, hello, welcome back to my channel. Just Shauna here to talk about a friggin' TV show. Not books today, so sorry. Book adjacent, seeing as how it is a comic book franchise show, but I'm not talking about the comics at all, because I don't know shit about them. The show in question, as per the title tells you, is The Penguin on HBO Max. It's HBO. Regardless, The Penguin is a show that is set in the world of Batman, particularly the most recent The Batman movie with Robert Pattinson as Batman. The show follows Oswald Cobb, aka The Penguin, after the events at the end of the Batman movie. This show very much has the vibe of a mobster, gangster, Sopranos-esque type of drama, just set in the fictional Gotham. Throughout the entire series, the entire 8 episodes, we do not hear of the Batman, we do not see him, no one talks about him. We are watching as Oz tries to garner more power in the kind of vacuum that was created with the death of Carmine Falcone, the head of the Falcone family, which happened at the end of the Batman movie. Carmine's daughter, Sophia, is released from Arkham and is looking for some revenge as well as looking for her place within the family. I will just say my kind of overall thoughts leading up to this. I'm not the biggest Batman fan. I've never seen most of the ones from the 90s, the Batman movies. I've seen the Christian Bale ones and the Ben Affleck ones, and honestly, I'm not gonna lie, I got real annoyed, in particular with Christian Bale's voice in those movies, but they're good, whatever, they're fun, I watched them. And I've seen parts of at least 1 or 2 from the 90s. And I think I saw the Halle Berry Catwoman. And yeah, just generally I preferred Robert Pattinson to Ben Affleck or Christian Bale, which I'm sure is some kind of sacrilege, but again, I'm not that into it, okay? I'm Batman's cool, whatever, I like superhero stuff. I've just always been more into the Marvel side of superhero comic movie franchises than the DC. Not so much now, but that's neither here nor there. But oh my god, after this show, I am now so fucking hyped for the Batman 2, or I don't know if it's gonna just be called that, but the sequel, the follow-up movie, I'm so hyped. I knew this show was coming out before it came out, and I had seen the trailers for it and stuff, and I watch all the reaction channels, and so of course I saw their videos, all these different reaction channels talking about the Penguin, and watching the trailer and all of this. And then it came out, and I think the first 2 episodes were out before my boyfriend was like, oh hey, didn't we want to watch the Penguin? I want to check it out. And I was kind of yeah, I did. Well, yeah, let's check it out. And I was kind of hemming and hawing about it. And then man, that first episode, I was just holy shit, this is so good. What the fuck? And yeah, now I'm obsessed. I just need to yap about it. I need to yap about it. I need to talk about it. I need to gush about it. So that's what we're here to do today. And very much spoilers for things. So talking about some of the characters and the character arcs, I need to try to keep my thoughts organized. Because this could easily just turn into a rambling mess of me gushing about the show. But Oz meets a young man named Victor in the very beginning, in the first episode, who he pulls into his world to assist him with all of his various schemes. Victor's family is dead due to the flooding that the Riddler created at the end of the Batman movie with all his bombs. So he has ended up getting pulled into kind of a little local neighborhood dudes, little gang, just stealing shit, petty thieves, stuff like that. And yeah, he unwittingly catches the attention of the Penguin and initially is very much forced to help him immediately with hiding a body, getting rid of a body, shit like that. And he's too scared to not go along with Oz initially. And then we get introduced to Oz's mother, Frances, who he has kept a secret from the entire Falcone family. Everyone thinks that his mother is dead, and I think most people do. He does tell Vic, but kind of just out of necessity. And she's suffering from Lewy body syndrome, which I was not familiar with prior to this. It looks a lot like dementia, those types of things. She has like episodes where she regresses and forgets where she is and thinks she's talking to her ex, the father of her children, and she's actually talking to Oz as a grown man, and she thinks her two other sons are still alive and they are not. So she just has lots of this just mental confusion going on. And Oz is just trying to protect her and keep her a secret from prying eyes. Oz is just such a fucking fascinating villain to me because while you do learn some things that kind of give explanation for some of his horrifying actions and despicable behaviors, he remains fully a villain. He is not morally gray. And I'll be honest, there were moments where I sympathized or I felt pity toward him, but I don't know that maybe in the first episode, perhaps, but aside from that, like after that point, I was not like, oh man, I'm kind of rooting for him. I really was not rooting for him very much because he's just a piece of shit. Like you can intellectually understand why he is the way he is sometimes. But for me, there is like little to no empathy in that understanding. It's not like when people say like, okay, I think murder is bad. Murder is terrible. Taking a life is awful. But I could understand why like a father might murder the person that harmed his child, like, you know, assaulted his child or killed his child. Like, oh, I can understand. It's not that kind of understanding. Oz's whole journey throughout the show was a roller coaster, like in the best way though. He is a scrappy motherfucker, to be sure. Just completely dogged in his efforts toward his goals at literally any cost. He's just like so full of shit constantly, all the time, just full of shit. All of his like internal, mental, emotional story was interesting, but ultimately he is as narcissistic and selfish as they come. He's created this entirely delusional reality where he does everything for his ma, but he is ultimately doing it for himself because he wants validation from her. Not that he actually cares about her and her happiness, he cares about her feeling pride in him. And not in a like, I just want my parents deserve happiness and I hope they feel proud of me. Like, I desperately need her to say she's proud of me, so I'll do whatever the fuck I can to attain that goal. To the point of, in the end, keeping her living in a vegetative state that she explicitly told him she did not want to do, but he does not care. Because as Sophia told him, I believe it is fully the truth, he does not actually care about his mom. There is some time in earlier episodes where you think he does. It seems like he definitely cares about his mom, but ultimately, I don't think he does. All he cares about regarding her is the approval of the one person whose approval and love he is unhealthily and weirdly obsessed with in kind of a gross way. He wanted her all to himself from birth, and he wanted her love and approval all to himself. But because of what he did to get her all to himself, he will never have her love and approval. And I think deep down he knows it and he cannot handle it. And so he just lives in this delusion where he refuses to admit the truth about what he did to his brothers, even when someone's about to harm his mother over it. He would rather watch her get hurt, probably rather watch her get killed, than say the words out loud of admitting that he did this horrible thing that makes her not love him, that makes her hate him. And it's just so deliciously fascinating to me. And then we have Sophia motherfucking Gigante, Falcone, whatever. I live, I die. I love her so much. Her villain origin is completely the opposite from Oz's. I not only empathize with her and like understand her motivations, I want her to get hers. This woman deserves all of the revenge And oh my sweet baby Jesus, she better fucking get it. The episode with her origin story was truly, like, I think one of the best television episodes of anything I've ever seen. It was so good. And I was just fucking livid with the ending and what ended up happening to her. Her going back to Arkham, I cannot. Like, Oz is such a heinous piece of shit. Oh my God, to go through all of that, everything she went through, to spend 10 fucking years wrongfully incarcerated in this hellhole, only to have to go back, like, such a mind fuck. Such a mind fuck. And then fucking Vic. I think most of us saw that coming at some point. I did start to get a little bit of hope that, like, maybe it wouldn't happen. Maybe he was good. He was proving himself, and, like, Oz was showing, like, care and concern for him in some capacity. Like, this poor kid. I was so defeated what happened to him with him getting killed. Like, Oz killing him with his bare fucking hands because he dared to see Oz as family. He was such a good person, just a good kid. He got forced by circumstance into being a small-time criminal, and then forced once again by circumstance and fear into being a bigger criminal with Oz. Almost left, came back, saved Oz's life multiple times, rode so hard for Oz all day, every day, and he fucking kills him with his bare hands. Like, what the fuck? Vic was definitely the criminal villain who I would say is, like, morally gray. I don't know. He's the one that just, everything is circumstantial. He would not have been this person doing these things, pulling guns on people, shooting people, you know, stealing, even, like, stealing the rims in the beginning. Like, he would not have been doing any of that had he had a different fucking environment and different fucking circumstances, different bullshit happening to him in life. He was completely just committing crimes based out of being in survival mode, like true survival mode. Not like, oh, I just greedy, want to have more money, so I have to survive. Like, genuinely just literally to survive and not get killed himself. He's not some, like, mentally deranged, selfish, narcissistic, greedy, power-hungry motherfucker type of, any evilness in him at all. He's just, like, a good person who got dealt incredibly shitty cards in life. I see Vic as, he is what Oz convinced himself that he is. It's who Oz wants to be, who he sees himself as, completely delusionally, as someone who just was dealt crappy cards and had to fight his way out of the pit to survive. But in actuality, Oz was always someone with pure, unadulterated evil in his heart and soul, and just greedy for power and money and prestige and respect, and willing to do literally anything and everything to fucking get it. And I personally think that even without killing Vic in the end, I've seen a couple of people, again, I watch reaction channels, and I've seen a couple of reaction channels kind of say, like, oh, well, now he's irredeemable. Like, now you can't, after he did that to Vic, killed Vic, like, you can't root for him. I personally think even if he hadn't killed Vic, he still was already an irredeemable, evil prick. What he did to Sophia 2 times, I mean, the first time, I mean, honestly, I questioned the first time. He definitely, like, he did try to talk to her, and she was like, man, fuck you. You're nothing. And so then he went to her dad, but, like, he didn't go to her dad out of, like, oh, I'm just concerned for her. We all know, and he knows if he looks deep in his heart, he went to Carmine because he knew it would get him a leg up, right? And while maybe he didn't think Carmine would send his only daughter that was gonna be the head of the family to Arkham to protect himself, I'm pretty sure he knew Carmine well enough to know that Sophia was not gonna get off scot-free with just a little chat from dad about that, right? So Oz did her dirty that time. And then, knowing her a little bit better after the fact, and knowing all the bullshit you did to her, killing her brother and lying to her fucking face about it, and sending her on a wild goose chase to like look for her, all this bullshit he did, and then trying to work with her but not, and immediately turning against her the second there's a gun in his face, like all the bullshit he did to her. And then he does that to her fucking again. Like, you're a terrible, terrible person to do this to another human being, this woman who has suffered, and this woman who did not deserve it in the first place. She wasn't some evil psycho monster. She was part of this family, and I'm sure she knew her dad did things, but she was kept in the dark with a lot of shit. A lot of the darker stuff that the family did, I'm sure she had inklings, but she was not as aware as like her brother was. And then what he didn't do for his mom in the end, like, I get that it would be hard, but that's the thing. He didn't leave her in a vegetative state because it was too hard for him to let her go. Like, I can't pull the plug on her. I just can't do it. Oh, it would hurt me too much. That's not fucking why. He did it selfishly so that he can say, I did it. Look, my mom has the penthouse. She's here. She's looking out over the city like I always said she would. Yeah, so he could feel good about himself. That's why he fucking did it. So fuck you. You're a piece of shit. And I mean, what he did to his brothers? Hello? Once again, I don't think he, and in that moment as a child, I don't think that he was like, I'm gonna do this to murder them. I think he did it out of anger immediately and like, meh. But then he realized pretty quickly, oh, it's a torrential downpour. He knew what was gonna happen to them, and he didn't fucking say anything. Yeah, I'm sorry, like, there's evil in your fucking soul, in my opinion. Just not a good person at all. I personally did not need to have him kill Vic in order to not be rooting for him. I was already not gonna be rooting for him. The writing overall in this show, just like incredible. The story arcs, the character arcs, the dialogue, just fantastic. There's a couple of monologues in this thing that are just so well acted, of course, which I'll get into, but just well written as well. And yeah, the directing, the cinematography, it was all just so great. Visually delicious. While it's like gritty and grimy and dark and violent, but just nice to look at the same time. But yeah, the acting on this show is truly phenomenal, in my opinion. Cristin Milioti alone should get the show all the Emmys. Colin Farrell as well, like, just crazy. And then Renzi Feliz, Carmen Ejogo, who played Eve, like, just top tier all across the board. Cristin Milioti is just, I was like dumbfounded with how good she was so many times in this. I had only ever seen her before in, mostly I knew her from How I Met Your Mother as the mother. And then there was like a movie that she was in that I did see too, but I can't remember now, but mostly I knew her from that. I was so emotional about her character in so many scenes just because of her delivery and her acting ability. Particularly the origin episode, of course, but like when her and Alberto are talking to the lawyer in the police station before she gets carted off, and when she stands up and is just like having a breakdown and just like, I'm gonna die in there, and he knows that. Like, I got emotional. I got choked up because I was just like able to put myself in her shoes because of just the raw emotion that she was bringing to the table in that scene. I just was like, can you fucking imagine? Like, her panic and just everything. So good. So good. And then just like the seething rage that you can see behind her eyes so many times, and it's completely justified. Like, she is completely justified in her fucking rage that she feels. You know, she is a villain who, does things like gas her entire fucking family except for the children. But, they were also kind of pieces of shit. And they all knowingly sent her, an innocent person, to this hellhole of a place for 10 fucking years and didn't even attempt to do anything about it, didn't even visit her, and just, yeah, fuck them, is kind of how I feel as well. And again, don't get it confused, Colin Farrell as well. I mean, not only is he unrecognizable visually, because of what I hope and assume will be award-winning, like, prosthetics, makeup, costuming, all of that, like, amazing, but also his acting, how he sounds, his delivery, his accent, and just everything about his movements, everything about it, like, he completely just became Oswald Cobb. And the only moments of some pity or sympathy that I ever felt toward Oz are completely due to Colin Farrell's acting ability. 100%. Editing Joshana here because I also meant to say a couple of other things. I didn't want it to sound like I was trying to say that Sophia was like a perfect person. I was saying she is a villain now, but my perception of her is that she is, like I said, someone who wouldn't have become this without the people around her doing awful things to her and kind of creating this monster. And that leads me to also with Oz, initially, before we got more information about him and his behavior as a child, I definitely thought his mother kind of created him as a monster because her interactions with him, even when she wasn't like kind of in her, dementia-like state and having like episodes and being kind of angry, but even when she wasn't like that, she was so cruel to him. Just like, I was like, she's a terrible mother. Like, she's abusive, like emotionally, verbally abusive. And so I was envisioning that like she probably was like this his whole life. And like, that's a big reason why he is the way he is. And I mean, we didn't see a lot of flashback, I guess, but the flashback we did see prior to him offing his brothers, his mom seemed like a nice mom. They struggled and whatnot, and he certainly was in an environment of just like very low income, struggling financially, probably struggling to make ends meet and everything. But they had a home and it seemed like they had food on the table. There wasn't like concern about that. And she was like a nice mom and loved her kids and played with them and, had rules and cared about them and their well-being and everything. So that is what kind of changed my tune with Oz, where mental health is a thing, but I don't know, I just think there are some people who from birth, probably things that happen to them don't help, but just kind of are evil leaning, just in their heart of hearts, in their soul. That is how I see Oz. So, and also the actress playing his mother did a phenomenal job as well. I wanted to say that. I didn't want it to sound like I was being harsh about like, because Oz clearly to me has like mental health issues now as well, like his weird obsession with his mom. But like we saw those flashbacks where I'm like, I think you kind of just came out the womb like this a little bit. I think your circumstances did not help matters. And you obviously you weren't living in a place and in an environment where like mental health resources were going to be a thing that anybody cared about. You probably could have used that. But here we are. Now you're just straight up psychotic. When he was not willing to admit the truth to save his mother from having her pinky cut off, I just was like, it like grossed me out. It was gross, so icky feeling. Just like, dude, you're so psychotic. I think also just I've experienced being in a relationship with someone who's so like living in an alternate reality sometimes where you're just like, what? Like it's so crazy. Like you're just so, you cannot see the truth at all, or you're unwilling to admit the truth. And it's insane. So anyway, that's all. Back to it. This is not a show to make you root for the villain. That wasn't the point of the show. And I love it for that. I really like it. I've seen some people agreeing and like feeling similarly too, that like, because there is interest to be had in morally gray characters or characters like Sophia, who, yeah, they're villainous now and they've done things now that they wouldn't have done before. And maybe sometimes they go a little overboard because they're like fully fucking out for revenge. Or characters like Vic, who, yeah, they do stuff and maybe they take lives, but like usually it's like in a crime situation and they're not going crazy. It's not out of vengeance. It's just out of like survival and like circumstance. Okay. That can be interesting and fascinating as well. We have two characters like that in this very show. But the titular character is not that. He is not a villain to root for, in my opinion. I feel like if anyone is like, no, I still root for Penguin, he's vindicated, I think you're joking, you're kidding yourself, or you're trying to be like different. Because why the fuck would you? Why would you root for this? He's a terrible, awful, complete, like unapologetically irredeemable, horrible person to everyone around him, including the one person he claims to actually care about. He doesn't. Like, and he's deranged. He is unwell and completely deranged and has been from a young age, we saw. So yeah, I don't know. Final thoughts. I loved this show. I'm so fucking hyped for the Batman 2, like I said. And honestly, I think without Sophia Gigante, and maybe without Cristin Milioti's acting with that character, or if that character just wasn't here at all, if it was a different Penguin story we were telling or something, maybe it would be a little different. I think it's still a great show all the way around, but I don't know if I'd be so hyped, but I'm so fucking hyped. And for her and Selena Kyle to meet up, hopefully work together. Oh God, I don't know if it's gonna happen. I desperately need Sophia. If she's not gonna get revenge, I would love to see her get revenge on Oz. But if she's not able to get revenge, I at least need to see her be able to do what she wanted to do and get the fuck out of Dodge. That's what I need. Oh, please God, please God. But yeah, there we are. That's me rambling. I'm done. I'll be done now. Let me know if if you've watched this whole thing, you've probably seen it, unless you just have no plans of seeing it, just wanted to watch me gush about something for a while. But yeah, let me know what your thoughts were about everything. Do you agree, disagree? To what degree do you agree or disagree? As always, thank you so much for your time. Hope you all have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.